The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask released a year and a half after Ocarina of Time, and it had pretty big shoes to fill. Ocarina did incredibly both financially and critically. It was really an instant success and an instant classic. People had high expectations for whatever Nintendo did next, and given the short turnaround time, which at this stage of the industry wasn't the most rare thing in the world, certainly there were plenty of sequels that came out just a year or 2 years after. I wouldn't say it was exactly commonplace, but more common than it is today. To have something come out so quickly after, people wanted to know what would be different. How would Majora set itself apart? And I think Majora's Mask does a ton of stuff to do that. And a lot of that can be seen in this early intro here, with just trying to turn various conventions that they set in Ocarina on their head. You get it right there with 2 fairies appearing, and instead of being helpful like the fairy Navi is in Ocarina, they literally attack Link. Then you get the most basic enemy, or one of the more basic enemies of Skull Kid from Ocarina of Time, wearing a super creepy mask and robbing you right off the bat. It also happens in bigger ways later in the game with the main time mechanic, which is more complex than anything in Ocarina of Time and creates a type of challenge and way to engage with the world that is fundamentally different than how it all works in Ocarina of Time. Everything from exploration to combats to solving puzzles has a new feeling to it because of the time mechanic. Love it or hate it, they made sure it was not just more Ocarina of Time. I understand that there's probably a lot of people that would have just liked it to be, but I think there's a lot of value in them taking the lessons they learned from the previous game and using that to make something super unique. And yes, they reuse assets, but I think they have an art style here, or at least a tone and mood that does feel distinctly different. You also can see their improvements with the use of camera angles, camera shots, movement of characters, the expressiveness that they have. It's all a step above anything that was in Ocarina, which, by the way, I think Ocarina of Time actually has some really cool uses of the camera. There are very interesting angles, especially any scene with Sheik. I think that they do cool stuff, but this has a cinematic quality that Ocarina lacked, or that they were still learning with Ocarina. Maybe in the best moments of Ocarina you get it, but here it's right off the bat. They're like, hey, let's show you what we can do. Everything feels like a step up from Ocarina, and I know it didn't review in a way that shows that it was a step up, but it feels like an advancement. Now, none of that is really what I'm here to talk about. None of that is the inconsequential thing that I've been thinking about for 25 years. The inconsequential thing that I can't ever forget is what you're about to see right here. Link can flip now. Link could flip in Ocarina of Time, both young Link and adult Link. You had to Z-target and jump back and you would do a backflip. But here, when Link simply jumps from platform to platform, he does a flip. And he does 2 different kinds. One is this cartwheel side flip, and the other is just a front flip, both of which seem entirely unnecessary for this moment in time. His horse has just been taken. His prized possession of the ocarina, which has the ability to disrupt the flow of time, has been stolen. And he decides when he's jumping from log to log to do a flip, to do 2 different types of flips. It's not needed to get to a higher point. In fact, doing a flip would never get you higher. No one's looking. He just does it. It's entirely impractical. But the thing is, and of course the reason it's here, is that it's really fucking cool. It is cool that Link does a flip. And as I was talking about earlier, Nintendo clearly wanted to show that this game is different, that this game has advanced in certain ways and can do things that the previous game couldn't or didn't. This is not the only part of the game it happens. I'm not exactly sure what triggers it. It seems like jumping usually from one platform to another platform at a certain height with a certain distance will cause it. Frankly, though, there aren't a lot of platforms set up like this one where you have a bunch of jumps in a row where you'll do it. So this is definitely the most memorable moment of it. I remember playing this as a kid, and this moment blew my mind. I imagine that learning the animation tricks and putting this in wasn't the biggest challenge for the people at Nintendo. I know it's not the difference of moving from 2D to 3D or any advancements that happen, but it felt like a massive thing. It felt like, oh, this game is freer and bigger than anything before because Link can do flips now. And I think those moments of amazement obviously happened all the time as a kid. And they happen less now. And maybe that's why this one has stuck with me so much, is it was just this memorable moment of me feeling like technology had advanced so far in just a year and a half. Link went from doing small little hops to being able to do flips, even though it's not that technology advanced, it's just that they chose to put in a flip animation because it made more sense and seemed like a fun idea. You could also argue that it kind of shows that this Link is going to be more advanced than the Link of Ocarina of Time. That Link could not use a bow and arrow. He couldn't do a lot of stuff that Majora's Mask Link can. So it's showing this shift in who he is and his ability and what risks he's willing to take. It is weird to see this behavior from Link. Cool. Again, cool. But it is weird. It's the sort of thing when Crash Bandicoot jumps, he does flips. I know when he bounces off stuff. That makes sense because he's cartoony. He's goofy. Where Link is kind of a serious character. Even young Link is, or at least this incarnation of Link. I suppose I would expect this more maybe with Wind Waker Link. But yeah, this is actually the most serious Zelda game, or top 3 most serious Zelda games, and one of the more serious Links. So for him to just do this is interesting. Now, these are all reasons that the developers put it in. It looked cool, it set it apart from Ocarina of Time, and maybe this one's more of a stretch, but it made Link seem more like a seasoned adventurer. However, I do also think it's interesting to consider, why is Link doing a flip here? What is the canonical reason that Link would decide to do flips? And you might be wondering, why does this matter? And it doesn't, of course, but I feel obliged to answer it as best as I can anyway. A thing to remember about Majora's Mask Link is that he is not just young Link. He is young Link who became adult Link and then got sent back in time to be young Link again. He has been a grown-up and now he's stuck in a kid's body. He has to grow up again. And yeah, I think you could argue, hey, isn't this something that a lot of people kind of miss? They want to go back to being a kid for a little bit, to not have any real responsibilities, to enjoy life in its simplest form. And you could say that's a good thing, I suppose. But of course, it's not. It's actually horrifying. First of all, young Link has always had responsibilities. Sure, he is not the one who actively actually saves the world in Ocarina of Time, but he does a lot. He does a lot of stuff that kids shouldn't have to do. I think young Link is 9. I looked it up. Young Link is 9. Adult Link is 16. So he's not even an adult. He's a teenager Link, teenage Link. But young Link is 9, and he's already having to go to multiple temples, kill massive monsters, and try to protect the kingdom from Ganondorf. So it's not like Link lives a carefree lifestyle. Link doesn't get to be a kid. Link isn't a normal kid anyway. So having to stay as a kid isn't a boon to Link. And if you look at the events of Majora's Mask, he has to save the world again. Now, however, I do think the core of why Link would do flips is here. This is a 16-year-old Link, someone who has been a 16-year-old, a young adult for a good portion of time, who now has to be a kid again, and almost certainly feels limited in many ways by that, and is willing to push barriers to feel anywhere close to the person he was not long ago. We also know that this opens up, Majora's Mask opens up with Link going in the Lost Woods without a fairy, which we are told explicitly, and timeliners let me know, but we're told explicitly that this turns you into a Stalfos. It is a death sentence. Sure, he's going to look for Navi, but he's so desperate to find his old friend that he's willing to risk death in a somewhat stupid way. The only conclusion I can come to is that this Link is a nihilist. He's a hedonistic nihilist who is looking for any bit of joy he possibly can. He saved the world and then didn't know what to do with himself, and he didn't even get to live in the world he saved. He was sent back so he would be able to have a childhood, but in reality, he was still robbed of his childhood and then also robbed of his adulthood. So his existence feels like a joke. So he does flips. And then, as he gets brought into Termina and is forced to deal with another existential crisis, with an actual apocalyptic situation, he has character growth. He's stuck in the loop. It keeps getting reset, so he can't even die. He's really in a nihilist's nightmare of he can't even get to the point where there's no meaning. He has to find meaning. He has to find a purpose to end the loop. Wait, am I on to something? Am I cooking? Is this something? Are Nintendo geniuses? I think so. Anyway, the flips are really cool. I like them a lot, and I think about them a lot. Have a good one.